All right, welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the numbers. I want to break down the numbers for you. The numbers being how much it costs to go get a unit, how much you can make with a unit, what the potential is for cash flow, what you charge per night, what you charge for the weekends and for the weekdays, and all the numbers, how much it costs to get a unit set up. We're going to go through all of those right now. So what I want to do is take you and show you my screen here, and I'm going to walk you through what makes this opportunity so powerful, okay? What makes this model so powerful? And I'm going to start by using an example of a $1,200 unit. Now this unit, you can see right here, I found this on Craigslist. It's a $1,200 apartment that's in Atlanta, Georgia. Now why did I use a one-bedroom $1,200 apartment and not a house? Well, you could use really anything you like, but I'm using this as an example because I recommend to most of my students that you start with a studio or a one-bedroom. You're looking for something that's less expensive than, say, a whole house or a three-bedroom unit. And so that's why I'm using this in this example. Also, the median price right now in the United States for a one-bedroom unit is $1,232, right around $1,230. So that's why I'm using this example. So this unit right here that I pulled off of Craigslist in Atlanta, Georgia, this is owned by Mr. Owner. Okay? And Mr. Owner is looking for somebody to rent this long term. Now in this example, he's looking for somebody that's going to live in the unit for 30 days a month. What he's really looking for is a year, right? He wants a tenant for a year, but I'm going to use 30 days in this example, and you're going to understand why shortly. Now if you take 30 days and we divide that $1,200 by 30 days, we end up with $40 a day. So $40 a day is what it costs us to control the property. And I want you to start thinking like this, because if you start thinking like a B&B'er, you're going to think in terms of how much things cost per day, not per month. Okay? So $40 a day will allow you to control this unit, assuming you get permission from the owner. And I always recommend you get permission. Don't do this without getting it written in writing from the owner that you can do this. So 30 days times $40 a day is the $1,200 a month. And let's say that this owner here has a mortgage. He's got a loan with some kind of principal and interest and taxes and insurance. And let's say his payment is $900 a month. Well, by the time he brings in $1,200 from his tenant and pays off his $900, he's making $300 in profit. Very straightforward, right? So he's making what we call cash flow, $300 cash flow. It's the oldest game in the book. It is the real estate game of you buy property, you lease it out, you make cash flow. And this is a very typical example of what you could make on a one-bedroom with the traditional model. Okay? Now, this Mr. Owner, he's looking for somebody to lease to, and he'd normally be looking for just any kind of traditional tenant. But what if instead of looking for a regular tenant, he were to lease this property to somebody like me, okay? A B&B'er, an Airbnb'er, and I get permission from that owner, like I mentioned, to take that property and put it up on Airbnb. So I'm turning it into a listing on the site. And you can see here, that's an image from Airbnb, and I'm listing it for $130 a night. Now you might be wondering, why $130, Brian? Well, $130, actually $133 right now, is, according to Statista.com, is the average daily hotel room rate in the United States. So $133. So I want you to know that I didn't just pull these numbers out of the air. I didn't just make up these numbers. These are very, very average numbers. Now, I don't want you to get hung up on whether or not that's a lot or a little bit of money, because where you live, you might be able to get a little one-bedroom for $500. Or if you're in New York City here, you're going to spend thousands of dollars for a one-bedroom. That doesn't matter, because whether it's a $500 unit or a $10,000 unit, it works with this model. Okay? So we now have the property listed on Airbnb with permission of the owner. And what we're going to do now is we're going to aim to get this thing filled 20 days a month. If we can get more than 20 days, that's great. I want to aim for 30, 31 days, get it every single day filled. But I want to be really conservative here in this breakdown, so that you can know that these numbers are all make sense. Okay, these aren't the best case scenario necessarily. So 20 days a month on Airbnb times $130 a day, which I just mentioned is the rate that we chose, brings in $2,600 a month. Okay, so we are bringing in $2,600 a month on this property, which means we're making how much? Well, I'm glad you asked that. we are going to be bringing in the $2,600 and then paying the $1,200 in rent to the owner because we're leasing it from them. But we also have another cost. We have the cost of utilities. Now, in a small one-bedroom like this, the utilities might be as cheap as $200. In the example that I'm going to use, I'm just going to pick that number. It doesn't matter whether it's a little higher or lower than that. But if we're paying another $200 in utilities, then we get to net $1,200 profit. Okay? $1,200 profit or $14,400 in a year on a unit that we don't own. Amazing, right? So I don't know if that would make a difference in your life to make $1,200, but you're going to see very, very soon that that number is actually very, very conservative. So we make $14,400 on that property in a year by doing this model. Now, some people might say, yeah, Brian, but wait a second, you've got to clean the unit. You've got to clean that property. Who's going to do that? And how do you pay for that? How much does that cost? That is true. You have to have a cleaning company come in and clean the unit, and you got to pay for things like the little soaps and the shampoos and the toilet paper and the things that the guests are going to use, but it doesn't have to come out of your pocket. Okay? And I'm going to tell you a really quick hack on how to do that. Here's how you can never have to pay for those items, never have to pay for cleanings. On Airbnb, people are used to this. They book the room, and at the end of booking out the room for the daily rate, it adds on the cleaning fee. You can add the cleaning fee on. So in other words, you take the cleaning fee and you pass it along to your guest. So if the cleaning fee on this little unit right here is $80 per cleaning, we're not only going to pass along the $80, we're also going to pass along the cost of paying for all the freebies. So let me give you an example. The soaps and the shampoos, they might be 20 cents a piece, 25 cents a piece. You might have a roll of toilet paper that runs for 35 cents a piece. You might have a couple waters that are each 50 cents. You know, you add those up, maybe some coffee, some creamers, all that stuff together might average just a few bucks. So let's say it's $5 or $7. So now instead of charging $80, we charge $90 to the guest. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to cover all those expenses so they don't come out of our pocket. So the numbers that you're seeing here don't include that because they're added on at the time of the booking by the guest. This is the same game that hotels play. When you stay in a hotel, you think you're getting stuff for free, and I don't know if you're like me and you hoard it all, but you know, if you're keeping those things, you already paid for them. You know, it's not free. It comes out of the cost of doing business. The hotel just bakes that into the price of your hotel room. Okay, so we're doing the same thing here. So you don't need to consider any of those costs in this scenario. Now, what I want to do here in the numbers section is I want to break down the old way versus the new way. And if you see my slides right here, on the left side, I have the old way of doing things, which is you take a property, you buy it, you rent it out, and you make $300 a month cash flow. The new way, using home sharing, is you turn it into a B&B. So it's not a rental, it's a B&B. And as a B&B, it makes $1,200 net. So we're talking about 400% more profitable. Okay? 400% more profitable on the new model than the old model. That's a significant difference. Now, what I also want to do in this particular section right here is do a quick breakdown of the two different models. So I want to basically talk about the break-even analysis, which basically means how quickly do I get my money back? People always talk about return on their money, but the most important thing is return of money. You want to get your money back, and you want to know how long it will take to do that. That's true of any investment. So I'm going to do a break-even on the traditional model of real estate investing, landlording, and this new model. So on the old way, taking that property and making $300 a month, let's say we got to purchase the property, and that property is $200,000. Then we're putting down the $40,000 down. I mentioned this earlier. That's 20% down. And we take that $40,000 that we invested in the property and we divide it by 300 a month. That takes 133 months to get the money back, right? That makes sense. Or 11 years. So not counting any appreciation or anything else, 11 years just to get our money back based on the cash flow of the unit. Okay, pretty straightforward. Now, compared to the new way of breaking even, there's a zero purchase price, okay, because we're not purchasing the unit if we're doing master leasing. There is no purchase. There's no money down because we're not putting down 20% to buy the property. There's also no closing costs. There's none of those things. And remember I said we're making $1,200 a month in this unit? So if we're putting down $1,200, actually we're making $2,600 in this unit. So if we're putting down $1,200 for deposit, $1,200 for first month's rent, guess what we just did? We broke even the first month. So we broke even in 1 month versus 133 months. So 133 times faster. So it's a tremendous difference, right? So 400% more profitable and 133 times faster than the traditional model of real estate investing. Now, some people might say, okay, Brian, that's really, really cool, but wait, if I own the property, am I not going to make more? Wouldn't I earn more than what you're quoting here? Yes, you actually would. Because in this scenario, this owner has a payment of $900, you could actually add that $300 on. So now you're making $1,500 a month. So yes, there is a potential that if you own the property, you can actually make more. Now, some people might say, wait a second, but what about appreciation? What about equity? You're not getting appreciation and equity in this scenario. And yes, that's true. You are not getting those things. And if you want to buy the property, it's a great way to go because you're going to be getting appreciation and equity. But what you gain with the B&B model, with the master leasing model, is you get simplicity. It's much simpler to do. It's very low risk, if any risk. And it's low cost to get into because now you're only talking about first month's rent and deposit. If you find a furnished unit, you only need the first month's rent, you only need the deposit, and boom, you're off to the races. So you can create a cash flow for yourself in the next 30 days, almost immediately, without any of those risks, without having to take the debt on or go get a mortgage or any of those kind of things. So for me, it's a good balance between risk and reward. Okay? So that's what you're gaining with this model. And I would recommend that if you want to buy properties, and gain the equity and build wealth that way, that you do that only after you've started with some B&Bs. You've already listed some listings on the sites and you're making money. Once you become experienced, once you know what you're doing, then you're going to move on and start buying properties and doing this on that model. Okay, so that's more of an advanced strategy. And I just recommend that so that we can get you in as easily as possible, making money as quickly as possible, and that's going to be with master leasing. All right, so now that's all sexy and cool, right? We're making $1,200 a month, but that's not going to change everybody's life, right? For a lot of people, that wouldn't really make a difference. Some people make a huge difference in their life. That's not where this is exciting. Making $1,200 a month did not change my life. But I want you to imagine something. Imagine if you were to take that property that you're now making $1,200 a month net in your pocket every single month, and you were to go out the next month or 2 months later and you were to get another one. So now you're making $2,400 a month. Right? Pretty simple. You're making $2,400 a month on 2 little listings that you have up on Airbnb, and then the next following month you get another one, so now you're making $3,600, and you do that 7 times. Okay, you do that 7 times over the course of a year or 6 months, however fast you decide to do it. Why 7? Well, because if you take 7, you multiply it by $1,200 per month, you're making $8,400 a month. $8,400 a month times 12 months is $100,000 a year. Now, you might say, well, how easy is that to do, Brian? Is that possible? Well, I did that not in 7 listings. I did that in 5 listings. Okay? And I've had students that have done it in even less than that, 3 or 4 listings. So it totally depends on what area you live in. But yes, it's totally possible to make 6 figures with just a few properties that you control that you have listed on Airbnb. And it's not hard to manage just a few listings like that. So that's the power of this. And depends on also in the market that you're in. So if you're in a market that's got much more expensive properties, then the amount of income you're going to make is going to be considerably higher. So instead of $1,200 a month, you might be talking about $3,000 or $4,000 a month because the unit is more expensive. So the income that you make is directly proportional to what the rent is. And the rule of thumb that I've found, or the general, let's say, result that I've seen with most of my students is they make about 300%. So if you have a $1,000 unit, you can make about $3,000. If you have a $2,000 unit, about $6,000. Now that might be less, a little lower, a little higher. Sometimes it's 200%, sometimes it's 400%. But the only thing you need to remember is that the cash flow is considerably higher than the old traditional model. And the cool thing is, you're getting this cash flow with no ownership, which means you can get it immediately. So once you find the property and you list it, you're setting up these cash flows. Now, the sky's the limit past that. I mean, I've got students that are doing 6 figures that have only been doing it for a few months, everywhere from 18 years of age up into their 80s, and with no experience, no prior experience, that are getting B&Bs, listing them on the site, and making this kind of money. So I just want to do a really conservative number with $1,200 to show you what's possible. And so that is the power of this game. The power is in scaling. Now, earlier I mentioned that there's a Forbes article and the article says that there are 75 people making $1 million or more a year on Airbnb, and the article goes in to explain that there's only one reason they're making that much money. Because when I first read the article, I was like, how is this possible? How do you make that kind of money on a site that's, most people make a few $100s a month on? It's because of multiple listings. So the key is to get multiple listings and then to figure out how to manage them so that you're essentially automating them, so you're not having to go run each of those individual units. And I can teach you how to do that. We can automate the entire process. So that is the numbers on the old model versus the new model. All right, now to be fair, what I would like to do is talk about on the numbers is what if we did own? What if we did own the property? I'm going to run through the scenario of if we were to own and the potential if you wanted to buy a property, okay? And this is for my friends out there that are real estate investors and are looking to acquire property. Now, I'm going to take an example of a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, let's say a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath cabin that we found in North Carolina that's for sale, okay? And this particular property that we looked at, payments are, since we're buying it, we have a mortgage. The payments on this particular property are $3,139 a month. Okay? Now, you might have a scenario where the property is cheaper or more expensive, but I'm just going to take this as a good example. And this particular property, we are looking at, our goal is to book it 20 days a month, just like in the previous example. So 20 days a month, which, by the way, that's about 60-something%, somewhere in the 60s for occupancy. That's average. That's totally average across the board. I like to be way above average. I get to up in the 90s, and my students get up in the 90s, and there's some techniques to doing that. But I'm going to go with whatever the average is for occupancy. So the average occupancy is right in the 60s, and so 66% occupancy, actually. And if you take 20 days or 20 nights a month, then we're looking at a rate of $375 a night. Okay, this is what we're going to charge. Now, we'll talk here in a little bit about how do you choose how much to charge per night. How do you know what to charge per night? We'll talk about that. But let's say we did decide to own this cabin, and our payments are $3,139 a month. What we're going to do here is we're going to look at the income. So the income, let me go ahead and start a new sheet here. The income here in this scenario is $7,500 a month, right? And we're going to compare over here using the guests versus tenants. Okay? So this is basically another breakdown of the two ways we could go. So if we have guests in here at $375 per night, we're going to bring in $7,500. And on the right side, we're going to bring in about $3,500. Now, how do I know this? Because that's the market rent for a home in this area for long term. Okay? So you can see the big difference here, $7,500 versus $3,500. If we just do guests and do it as a short-term rental. Now, we have the expenses, remember. And in this example, I'm just going to use the mortgage as an example to show you some round numbers. I'm not going to include the utilities in there for right now. Now, the expenses are the same here versus here for the mortgage. Doesn't matter. It's the same expenses. And the monthly profit, let's go ahead and break that down. So the monthly profit here is $43.61 versus $361. I wasn't going to do the math in my head. So here we're making $361 a month cash flow, and here we're making $4,361 a month cash flow. Dramatic difference, right? So a year profit, if you're looking at this on an annual basis, we're looking at $52,332 versus $4,332. All right, so if I lost you there, come back, because what I'm trying to show you here is this model here with guests is 12x. 12 times more powerful. 12 times more profitable, rather. So 12 times more profitable than this model. Okay, and in this scenario, we're owning the property. So you can see the tremendous power of doing something like this. And so that's what I want to show you, that once again, in an exact example of a property that we're looking at purchasing in the mountains, and exactly how it breaks down. And this is all based on just 20 nights a month. Just 20 nights a month. If we were to make, let's say if we were to get closer to 90% occupancy, if we were to get 25 nights or 28 months, 28 days or 31 days per month, then this number could actually be much, much higher. So this is the name of the game, and this is the way to go if you were going to actually buy the property. So I wanted to break it down to be fair to those of us who are looking to purchase property. Okay, so what I'm going to do here in a moment is I'm going to teach you exactly how to pick your nightly rate, pick your weekend rate, and figure out exactly what you're going to charge on your listing. Okay, and this is a question I get a lot, is how much do I charge? How do I know if I'm charging too little or too much on my unit? Now, this is what everybody wants to ask, and so what I want to do is I want to show you, I'm going to take you to my screen and show you a particular website. Let me write it down for you. This is an absolute gold mine for B&Bers like ourselves. It's called airdna.co. All right, airdna.co, not .com. And AirDNA is essentially a website that aggregates data from Airbnb and puts it into a form that we can understand. So they have maps, they have reports that you can buy on just about any neighborhood or any city or any town across the US. So my international friends, this is not available in all international locations, but it's definitely available in the US, and I'm going to show you how we can use it here in the States. So what I want to do is go to my screen right now and show you how this tool works. All right, so here we are on the AirDNA website, and you're going to be amazed at what you can find here. This is going to give you pretty much an unfair advantage in the marketplace, because you're going to know things that you can't know otherwise. You're going to know things that you can't find by going on the Airbnb website. This is all data that's collected on the back end. And it's meant to help people that are hosts like us to have more information about what to charge and the rates and occupancy rates and all that kind of thing. So what I want to do is just pick a city, and I'm going to go through and show you all the data that you can get on that particular city. So this could work with big cities or small towns, but I'm going to go ahead and just pick one. Let's just say Orlando, Florida. Put that in the search box there. And it's going to pull this up. Now here it's going to ask you to sign up. We're just going to skip that for right now. Okay, so what you'll need to do is sign up for the free account to at least get some access. So I'm inside now, and I'm able to see some of this information. I'm not actually paying for this information. This is just what's available for free. So you're going to want to go ahead and sign up really quickly, go through the registration process. Now once you're inside, this is what you're going to see. So here is Orlando, Florida. And the kind of information that's in here is gold. Like, for example, average daily rate. So right there, $179, we know that the average listing in Orlando, Florida is charging $179 a night, right? That's good information to know. Over here, the second box, we have occupancy rates. So we know that the average occupancy is 64%. Remember just a little while ago I mentioned 66%? Well, it's 64% in this area. Now that doesn't mean you couldn't do much, much better than that, because that occupancy rate generally includes listings that aren't available all the time. So if somebody takes their room or their house and lists it when they're on vacation or when they're out of town, but it's not available every single day of the year, then that can actually pull down the occupancy rate. But that includes every single listing. So we're going to know the occupancy rate, which is kind of useful. And then we also have the revenue. So the revenue is going to show you what the average listing can bring in a month. So here's $24.70. And the really cool thing is if you scroll down here, you get to see this map. And this map is basically like a heat map of what's going on in Orlando proper. So I'm going to zoom in, and we're just going to start running over some of these little dots here. And as you can see, what it does is it shows us exactly what's going on in every single one of these listings. So we can see that there's one bedroom, we can see what the rates are. Every single thing is listed in here, $94 a night. And it gives us an example of what neighborhoods are earning what amount of money. So you're able to use this as data to go figure out what neighborhood you want to focus on. Now, one of the things you want to know about these areas is you're going to see all kinds of ranges in prices. Okay, you're going to see some that are really low and some that are really high. A lot of times the really low prices are because it's a room that's available. And rooms always command less money. So I don't want you to look at this and think, oh my gosh, they're getting so little money in that area. It's because a lot of times those are rooms that are listed and they're not entire properties. And the thing that I like to teach is to focus on entire properties, entire listings, not just a room. So you go through here, you can see this heat map. It gives you an overlay of what's going on in the area. And then you can kind of zoom into whatever area you want to focus on. So you can see these clusters. For example, there's a whole cluster of properties right in here. I don't know if that's Disney World or what that is, but you can actually zoom in and say, oh my gosh, what is going on in this area? There's a lot of condos available in this one area. And you might think you want to avoid an area with a big cluster, but you don't necessarily need to. Because there's a reason that people are in those areas doing Airbnb. There's a reason that they're in there, and probably because they're making money. And so then on the left-hand side, once you have time to go through and explore that different map of the area, you can see where everything is. On the left-hand side, it tells you the breakdown of what each listing is. Like, for example, very few of these are studios. Quite a few are ones, and a majority are 2 bedrooms. So it breaks down the percentages of what do we have? We have studios. Do we have 1, 2, 3 bedrooms? What's the percentages on each of those? It also shows you the activity. Okay? You can see that right here, 39%, okay, this is very, very important. Pay attention to this. 39% of these properties on this map are only available between 1 and 3 months. Do you see that? 1 to 3 months are available. And then another 24% are only available 4 to 6 months. So that means that the majority of these properties are not available year-round. Not available year-round, which means they're not competition, first of all. So you get to see, like, how many full-time listings are there that are available all the time. And you can also see how far out they're booked. So right here, it says 1 to 3 months booked, 4 to 6 months booked. It shows you who's getting bookings way out in advance. I don't think you need any more than 1 to 3 months booked at a time, but you can see that people are getting bookings as far out as 7 to 9 months. And in this case, 14% of people are booking out that far. And so basically, that shows you all that. And then you can see there's also rental growth per year, how many rentals are coming on the market, how many active hosts there are. So it shows you super hosts versus multi-listing, people that have more than one listing, and then single listing hosts. And then it basically just breaks down all the data. Now, once you get into this, you can see there's all kinds of stuff on the left-hand side here for pricing. This is going to give you the breakdown. Now here, it's not showing me this because I haven't purchased the report. You can purchase the report for your area. It tells you what the entire room gets, what the private room gets, and what the shared room gets. The one that we're going to focus on is the one on the left, the entire home. We really only care about what entire homes are going for. So when you get the report for Orlando, it'll give you that information. And you can go down the left-hand side here and you can see all kinds of cool things from occupancy to seasonality. Wouldn't it be cool to know which months make the most money? How seasonal is it? Some areas are highly seasonal, where you make a lot of money in the on and less money in the off, and some are very, very steady, where it doesn't really matter, especially non-tourist destinations. So if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, you have a very different market than you do if you're in Orlando, and very different than you do if you're in, Colorado, one of the ski towns. So it's going to be different depending on where you are. And so it breaks down every single one of these sessions. You can go through and you can basically order a subscription. So you can see it right here on the right-hand side. There's a subscription model, and it gives you the data that you need. Now, this is the way to go really, really deep on the data and to know what's going on in particular markets. Now, do you have to do this? Do you have to buy this report? No, you don't necessarily have to. You can just kind of go based on what you see on Airbnb. And what I did in the very beginning is I didn't have any of this available to me. At the time that I started, this wasn't even a thing. So what I did is I just listed one thing. I listed a room, and it did really well, and so I listed a 1-bedroom. And then that did really well, so I listed a studio. And I kind of knew from experience what things could make. So my little 1-bedroom that I listed, the very first thing that I leased and listed, it was bringing in, was making me about $1,600, but it was bringing somewhere over $3,000 to $4,000 a month. So I knew if I found another unit that was roughly the same price, it would bring in probably about the same amount of money. And if it was 2 bedrooms, it might bring in even more. So I felt confident to pull the trigger and go, because I didn't really care if I was going to make $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month or $2,500. I didn't care. I just wanted to make money on that unit. And I didn't really care what the specific number was. All I cared about was, am I going to make more than my expenses? That's all I cared about. And that's kind of what I'm telling you to do here, is that you want to kind of get going in your marketplace by getting your first listing up and running. And the most powerful data that you're going to have is your experience, your seat of the pants experience. And nothing beats experience. Even looking at charts and data all day doesn't tell you anything compared to actually putting a listing up and seeing what happens. Okay? So that's what I recommend there. And AirDNA is a great source if you are kind of one of those people that likes to nerd out on data and you want to buy a report, or you're going to be building a big business and you want to have a lot of information before you start either buying a bunch of properties or scaling your business in a particular area, or you want to know what area to go to. Okay? So AirDNA is the site for that. And also, I'm going to give you something that I think you're going to like, which is I know the gentleman who owns AirDNA, and he offered something really, really cool to us and Ty and everybody who's watching. We're going to give you 20% off if you buy one of these reports. Now, I don't get anything for this. I'm just passing you along the discount code. So the coupon code is AirDNA Data. Let me write that down. AirDNA Data. So AirDNA Data, when you go to check out on that website, you will get a 20% off discount just by using that code. Okay, so that's for everybody who is in this training right now. I think you'll enjoy that. Okay, so the next part of the numbers that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about something I call the Rule of 8. Rule of 8. Now, the reason I took you through the whole process of trying to figure out what you could charge per night, or having a rough idea. So let's say you're like, hey, I could make $150 to $180. I could charge $150, $180 a night. If you have a general idea of what a one-bedroom or a two-bedroom goes for in your area, that's really useful for what I'm about to teach you. And what I call the Rule of 8 basically allows you to figure out whether or not to say yes or no to a property. Okay, so how does Brian look at a property and say, yes, I'm willing to sign a lease on that and take it on right now. I know it's a deal, versus it's not a deal, I'm going to pass. Okay, it's a very simple rule. Once you start applying this rule, you're going to find it useful. So the Rule of 8 states that you're going to take the total cost of the property, which you got to figure out first. So once again, I'm going to use the $1,200 example. And in this case, let's say it's another $300 in utilities. That is $1,500. Okay? $1,500 is our total cost on this unit. Okay? It doesn't include cleanings, because as I mentioned before, we do not need to include cleanings or any of the supplies. And let's just assume that this is a furnished unit. So $1,500 is our total cost every month, our only cost. If we take $1,500 and we divide it by 8, because it's the Rule of 8, what do we get? We get $187. And see, I do no math in my head. $187 a night. $187 a night. Now, why do I need to know the number? Why am I dividing by 8? If you take all Fridays and all Saturdays in a month, it's roughly 8. Now, some months are going to have more, but I'm not worrying about those. I'm just going to say, as a general rule, you have 4 Fridays and 4 Saturdays per month. On Airbnb, on VRBO, on these sites, the first thing that books is always the weekend. Weekends always book before weekdays, almost as a general rule. And that makes sense, right? They're just more in demand. People travel more on the weekends. So if I'm bringing in $187 a night, if I can charge $87 a night, based on what I'm seeing in the data from AirDNA or going to the website, then the answer is yes. So if it's greater than $187, it's a yes. And if it's less than $187, it's a no. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to break even on this unit on just the weekends. It's that simple. That's all I do. So I have already done my research, and I know there's an Airbnb unit in the same building that they're charging $187. I know there's an Airbnb unit that's the same size, same number of bedrooms and baths. It's, I don't know, 2 blocks away, and they're asking $187. Or I went on to AirDNA and I bought the report, and I see there's 6 listings that are right around that price range. It doesn't matter if it's exactly that. But if there's several in that right close to that price, I know that I can break even, so it's a yes. Now, why am I trying to break even? Why would I want to break even, Brian? That doesn't sound cool. Because I'm trying to break even on the weekends, which means that everything above and beyond that is a gravy. Everything above and beyond that is in my pocket. Okay? Now, if you want to be a little more aggressive, you could say, I'm just going to break even on the $1,200. I'm going to take $1,200 and divide by 8. Okay? So you could do that if you want to, and then have your utilities come out of the other days. But if we're going to break even on $187 on the weekends, then that means on the weekdays we could charge less. And as a general rule, you are going to charge less on weekdays. So let's say we're charging $150. Okay? Only $150 on the weekdays. And we were to get 10 of those, just 10. 10 nights filled. And of course, that's 1,500. 15. We got $1,500 that we're making in our pockets after we've broken even, $1,500. And that's only on 10 days. How many days in the month do we have? Well, if we're taking a 30-day month, it's, you know, every month has a different number of days, but let's say it's a 30-day month, and we take out 8, then now we're at 22, right? 22. So 22 times 150, we could make a lot more money than $1,500. You know, we could be well over $2,000 a month net profit. So I don't really care if it's 10 or 5 or 15 or 20. I mean, I don't know how many days it's going to be. I know I'm going to be profitable. And even if I wasn't making quite that much, I know that I can get it better and better and better every month and start filling my calendar up. And what could be cool is, let's say we're making $1,500. So let me break it down for you. Okay, so we're going to break it down. We got 8 days, or 8 nights. Let's just call them nights. 8 nights is our expenses. Okay. Now we got another 10 nights times 150 is our 1,500 in profit. That's profit. But we still got all these other nights available. So now let's take another 5 nights, and let's say we're only getting $100 on those nights, okay? So we go on the calendar and we say, you know what, let's start discounting. Nobody wants to book these Monday nights. Nobody wants these Tuesday nights. Well, they do if you charge less. So let me ask you a question. How much is the right price? I mean, let me ask you this. Will something sell if it's the right price? The answer is yes. Everything will sell for the right price, right? Everything will sell if it's cheap enough. In other words, if you were to offer the night for $1 a night, do you think it would fill? Of course, every single night on the calendar would fill. So we don't want to charge $1, but we also don't want to charge $150 if it's not filling immediately. What we want to do is come down with our rate a little bit. So now we're making another $500. Okay? So now we got, let's see, 18, 23, what is it? 18, 23 days, 23 nights, right? So now we could do another 5 nights. So let's say 5 nights here times 75 is, what is that? 150, 300, 475, right? Is that right?
5 times 75?
5.
375.
375. Look, guys, I'm not the sharpest tack in the shed, but I'm figuring this out. Okay, so 375. So now you can see we have different incomes for different days because that's just what the marketplace demands. We're going to change our prices. We're not going to keep our prices fixed. That's the biggest mistake that people make. They take one price, they leave it, and then they don't change it, and they wonder why they don't fill their calendar. Okay? We're going to do what the airlines do. We're going to do what the hotel industry does. They all do this. When you go to book a hotel flight and then you check it 3 days later, it's a totally different price. You're like, why? Supply and demand, that's why. They're trying to fill every seat, and we're trying to get heads in beds. So every single night, we're trying to get heads in beds. And so you take all these here, this number here, first of all, we're breaking even on this number. That covers our expenses. We're making $1,500 here, we're making $500 there, we're making $375 there, right? So $2,375 in cash flow. $2,375 in our pocket on this unit. Do you think that would be worth doing? Yes. Yes. And it doesn't matter how you break it down. It doesn't matter how you break it down. You could do $100 every night on the weeknights. This is how I analyze. It's called the Rule of 8. Oh, I don't have that up here anymore. It's called the Rule of 8, and it allows you to determine if you can break even on the property on the weekends. And if I break even on the weekends, I say yes to the property. It's worth doing. And that's it. That's really it's as simple as it gets. And what you're going to do is you're going to play around with your prices at all times. Okay? You can change your prices as much as you want to and as many times as you want to. There's all kinds of pricing tools out there. Airbnb has a pricing tool. I recommend pricing it yourself, though, in the beginning. You want to learn your pricing better than anyone else, and you don't want to just leave that to an algorithm. You want to do it yourself. That's what I recommend. Now, eventually, you can try out the pricing tool and see if it does a better job. But remember, if you put your listing in the hands of Airbnb, who's interest are they more looking out for? Yours or Airbnb's? See, Airbnb is going to make money when bookings happen, right? They're going to make money by getting bookings done, not always getting the best price for your listing every single night. So just make sure that if you're trusting Airbnb and the prices that they have, that you've also tested it yourself to see what you can get on your own. So there's nothing wrong with doing manual pricing and just going in and changing the price. It's super easy to do. You just do it on your phone. You do it once a week, and you see what you can get. Also, your nightly rates are going to be lower for nights that are right around the corner. Okay, so if I have stuff that's empty 3 weeks from now or a month from now, do I need to discount it a whole lot? Probably not. But if it's tomorrow night and I don't have anybody staying here, or it's 2 nights from now, I need to start aggressively discounting because I want to get people in there. Because every night that you have empty is money that you're losing. Is it any more effort for you to have a whole bunch of people in the property in a month than it is to have just a few? No, it's not really, because you're not going to be the one cleaning the unit. You're not going to be doing any of that. Your crew's going to be doing that. Your cleaning company's going to do that. So you want to try to fill every single day on the calendar. So that's it. So that's the easiest way to determine with the numbers whether or not you should say yes or no to a property. And a lot of times, if you don't know exactly what it's going to earn you in your area, the only way you're going to know is by jumping in. And so I tell people all the time, if you're afraid to jump in, you're afraid to sign a lease, that's okay. You don't have to. You can always start with a room. Do what I did. Start with a room. Start with a friend's place. Go find somebody else that owns a unit. Tell them you want to partner with them. You want to list their unit or their whatever they have, their apartment on the site, and see how it does. So there's all kinds of ways to do it. You can also partner with owners. We'll talk about that more in a bit. And partner with the owner where you split the revenue with them and there's no lease, totally lease free. So it doesn't commit you to a year. All right, so that is the numbers. We went through the numbers, and in the next lesson what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the how-tos. Okay, we talked about analyzing, but I want to get the rubber on the road and get down to the how-tos, exactly how to do this business, and that's what you're going to learn in the next lesson.